Hey guys, and welcome back to TheBinger. The waiting is finally over, and Avengers Endgame has landed. It's a movie of epic proportions, proving that Marvel Studios still reign supreme. Coming in at over 3 hours long, the movie has a ton of noteworthy moments. Noteworthy probably isn't the word actually, more like revolutionary. We're gonna take a look at some of the more pivotal moments in Endgame, and how they change everything. Join us if you think you're brave enough to relive some cinematic genius. The Avengers catch up with Thanos. Ever since Avengers Infinity War ended, the world has been thinking about one thing. Well, actually we've been thinking about a million different theories with a million different outcomes. Doctor Strange would be proud. But one thing stood out above all the rest. Were the Avengers going to catch up to Thanos? Where's the big T post-snap? Despite the odds, the Mad Titan wasn't taking a break and sipping a Mai Tai on a tropical beach. Instead, he was living in simplicity in a remote land, picking fruit for his breakfast. It was sort of idyllic really, and miles away from the chaos and destruction that he pursued throughout his life. His little hut almost made you feel sorry for him when the Avengers swooped in. Almost. Once he completed his ultimate goal, there was really nothing left for him to do. His purpose was over with. He was just living out his days. At the very start of Endgame, it's just a few days after the snap. The remaining heroes figure the best way to get their friends back is to track down Thanos. That way, they can use the gauntlet to undo it. It was a simple plan that should have worked, but there was one glaring issue. In a perfectly executed surprise attack, they get the purple brute exactly where they want him. Sadly, he already destroyed the stone some days prior. In a fit of rage and frustration, Thor chops his head off. The moment was small, but a brilliant setup for what was to come in the movie. With Thanos and the stones gone, the gang was forced to retreat. And after 5 years, they eventually figure out a way to undo everything. The slaying of Thanos demonstrated how these guys could band together and how things can go right. With Thanos now gone, it opens up the playing field for a new big bad to enter the MCU. It's just a question of who and when. Cap's happy ending. One of the first things that Cap said when he woke up from being on ice was, "I had a date." No matter what he did, where he went, or what big evil he was fighting against, he always had one thing on his mind: Peggy. Leaving true love in the past is a pretty big thing, especially when that person gets married and has kids of her own. Cap was then put through the emotional trauma of watching his soulmate as an old woman with dementia. Throughout all his appearances in the MCU, Cap has always come across as a strong, yet tortured individual. When writers decided to have him bow out at the end of Endgame, it was a bittersweet moment. Not only was it great to see him do something for himself for once, but it showed us that superheroes are worthy of happiness. Marvel Studios could have easily kept milking the cash cow that is Captain America, but they opted to give the character a worthy ending. It was so just and noble that Cap himself would have been proud. How did this change everything? Well, it goes beyond the plot of Endgame. It showed loyal fans that Marvel is willing to go the extra mile for a character. We also know that no one is safe. Heroes can bow out of the game or get exterminated completely from the MCU. If we were in any doubt about that before Endgame, it's crystal clear now. Thor's depression. Poor Thor really got a rough deal in Avengers Infinity War. He had to deal with his brother being squashed by Thanos in the first scene, then later failed at taking down the big guy. When he can't stop the Mad Titan from performing the snap, he feels like he's worthless. Of course, when they catch up to Thanos in Endgame, he chops his head off in one fell swoop, and that's that. For the next 5 years though, he doesn't exactly lead the hero lifestyle. Cap and Natasha are brooding while trying to maintain what's left of the Avengers. Tony and Pepper are playing happy families with their daughter, and Clint is off ripping criminals a new one. Thor, on the other hand, is spending his days in New Asgard, piling on the pounds and drinking all the beer. It's a perfect injection of comedy that fans were grateful for, but it also served a purpose. We saw Thor, the super shredded god of thunder, with a very human side. We're not used to seeing what happens to our heroes when they don't win. By showing Thor in all his scruffy glory, we're reminded of his vulnerability. No matter where he's from, he still has flaws that could be his downfall. Sure, he does manage to get it together at the end, but it's not about that. It opened up an entirely new element to the character that's intriguing and exciting. Now, he's on board the Guardian ship, and it'll be interesting to see where the chubby Adonis goes from here. The Ancient One's appearance. Okay, so it sort of goes without saying that the Ancient One knows everything. We get that. But her appearance in Endgame raised a few questions about Doctor Strange. When Bruce goes back in time to get the Time Stone, he comes across the Ancient One. She already knows what he's come for and isn't really that interested in going along with the plan. Her concern soon lapses when Bruce tells her that Doctor Strange purposefully gives Thanos the Time Stone in the future. In fact, she looks like she could be knocked down with a feather. At that moment, the Ancient One had yet to meet Strange, but had been keeping a close eye on him. We know from his standalone movie that she always knew how important the Sorcerer Supreme would be. Even then, she knew that he would take over for her one day in the future. The scene really serves to reiterate the importance of Doctor Strange. The Ancient One gives Bruce the Time Stone after making him promise to return it. This scene doubles down on Strange's abilities and could be a big prompt for what's to come in the second movie. After all, you don't get a title as grand as his without having the chutzpah to see into the future. It also proves that Strange purposefully gave Thanos the stone as he knew it was not the end. Really, without Strange, nothing would have been accomplished. He set Tony up for a home run. The return of the Snapped. Let's face it, this one wasn't really a surprise to us. We all knew that at some point in this movie, the Snap was going to be undone. There's no way the likes of Peter Parker and T'Challa were going to be gone forever when they're relatively new to the MCU. What we didn't know was how it was going to happen. And that was the element of surprise. As we all know by now, Bruce Banner took one for the team to undo Thanos' work. The dusted heroes return in an epic fashion. During the final battle against the Purple Brute, Doctor Strange opens up his portals and the rest of the gang flood in from Wakanda. That's the moment that we were all waiting for. Viewers pumped their fists in the air and happy tears were shed. There was something so empowering watching the fallen heroes arrive en masse, ready to fight another day. It was enough to melt even the coldest of hearts. Thanos' army still had the upper hand, despite the best efforts of our good guys. When Thanos manages to get the gauntlet once more, it's down to Tony to save the entire planet. Iron Man laid down his life for the greater good in a truly devastating scene. Tony Stark's passing marks an important turning point in the MCU for multiple reasons. Not only is he gone, but there are a lot of characters that'll honor his legacy moving forward. Peter Parker looked up to Tony so much that he's definitely going to be affected by this turn of events. It may not be directly referenced, but it doesn't have to be. The rest of the heroes that were snapped will no doubt get on top of their game following Tony's sacrifice too. What more do you need to make sure you're the best of the best than a reminder of your own mortality? Stan Lee's final cameo. Marvel mastermind Stan Lee passed away in November of 2018, just shy of his 96th birthday. The comic book whiz is responsible for creating many of our favorite characters, and over the years, it became traditional for Lee to have a little cameo in each movie. Usually it was just a line or a couple of words that meant very little. His last cameo was in Endgame. With the retrieving of one of the stones botched, the gang has to buy themselves more time. Using the last of their Pym particles, Steve and Tony go to the 1970s New Jersey Army base to steal some more from Hank Pym. They get more than they bargained for there though. Tony stumbles across his dad, Howard Stark. Awed to see his papa as a relatively young man, Tony is moved to the point of tears. The two exchange a conversation, with Howard not knowing that Tony is his son. It's a sweet moment. While they're outside of the base, a hippie tells him to make love and keep the peace. And that's Stan Lee, made up with dark hair and a mustache. The irony isn't lost on fans that Lee's last cameo was in Endgame, which in itself is a completion of Phase 3 of the MCU. While his cameo might not directly spell huge changes to come, it does mark the end of something important. Without Lee, the landscape of comic books and movies might look different than it does today. Director Anthony Russo said that Lee making it to this point was a small miracle, but a fitting end to a legendary icon. Nebula's big move. Nebula has had a rocky road in the past. She was often slammed by Thanos, who wanted her to do his dirty work, but couldn't love her like he loved Gamora. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't please him the way he wanted. After a few rough patches with her sister over the years, she eventually became good. That made it all the more devastating when Thanos threw Gamora off a cliff in Infinity War. Determined to help bring Daddy Dearest to justice, Nebula joined ranks with Cap & Co. When the time travel element was figured out, Nebula ended up alerting the past version of Thanos to their plan inadvertently. He captures her and tasks the old Nebula with switching places. The 2014 Nebula goes back to the present and lets Thanos and his army in through the giant time machine pad. While all this is going on, the current Nebula gets a chance to talk to the 2014 Gamora. When Gamora learns about Thanos' actions and her future passing, she switches sides and helps Nebula escape. They're eventually confronted by 2014 Nebula, who doesn't listen to what Gamora is telling her. After a little scuffle, present-day Nebula shoots her old self. It takes a lot of gumption to be able to do that. If there was ever any doubt about what side the blue android was on, it was pushed aside at that moment. By this point in the movie, we already know that Nebula has come a long way. She's still serious and downcast, but when she's stuck in the ship with Tony at the beginning, she's able to play games. For someone with no concept of fun, that is a big thing. She then tops it all off by slaying her past self for the good of the human race. With Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in the works, Nebula could play a prime part. She has slowly but surely proven herself as a valuable Avenger that'll do anything for the good of the world. Who would have thought it? And there you have it. What do you think? Do these moments define what's to come for the MCU? Sound off in the comments section. We love to hear from you. And before you go, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Until next time guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.